And welcome back, everyone. Now we move ahead to discussing severe storms. Marcus, where I came from in Mississippi, we were no stranger to these tornadoes. And while they are pretty to see from a distance, they do pack a lot of damage potential.
Yeah, that is right. They can be deadly sometimes. The Deep South region is prone to more tornadoes in recent years than in the South Plains. Check out this. Most people associate tornadoes with Tornado Alley, which is across the central part of the United States, and that includes Texas, but not necessarily our portion of the state. Now, researchers say that the Tornado Alley has shifted east to the south and southeast part of the country. Despite that, Texas still sees a decent number of tornadoes per year. Last year, we had nearly 120 tornadoes touch down here in Texas, and in 2021 across the country, 1,400 of those made touching down in 2021, 10% here in Texas. And so this is always important to make sure that we are staying weather aware. One other tool, too, is looking at the 25-year average of tornadoes. Notice how it peaks in March, April, May, and June. That is our primary season of severe weather. Secondary severe weather season is from September to December. And remember, this is based off of a 25-year average, but you can clearly see as we get into April and May, this is when the peak season of severe weather is anticipated to increase. So we've always got to remain on guard in terms of that. Carson, let's show the viewers for a general setup of severe thunderstorms and also how these tornadoes form.
Yes, Marcus, very good information right there. So we are in Tornado Alley here in East Texas, and when we're looking to forecast severe weather, here are a few of the ingredients that we look for. First off, storm system to our west, and typically in the upper levels and the lower levels, the wind is moving all sorts of different directions, and that's where you get that much needed spin in the atmosphere. So upper level winds, they're typically trekking from southwest to northeast, and then you have this warm, moist wind coming in from the Gulf of Mexico, and that does result in some pretty rowdy weather here across East Texas. And unfortunately, as Marcus mentioned, I mean, this is from March, which is this month, into parts of June. That's when we see our primary severe weather season. Now, more specifically, on a local level, here's how a tornado forms. First off, you get the spin, winds moving different directions, and then you get that kind of a horizontal cylinder spin, and the powerful updrafts that go into the storm ends up tilting that column, and you get a tornado. So very strong lift. You need all these elements of a severe thunderstorm, and unfortunately, some not so good things happen when there's a tornado on the ground. Andrew?
That is right, Carson. And even though tornadoes from a distance can look pretty cool, they are very dangerous, and also you may not even be able to see them at times. In fact, there are several different scenarios where you just cannot see a tornado if it's on the ground. One reason, if the tornado is rain wrapped, and that is actually pretty common here in East Texas. It's called a high precipitation supercell, and that means the rain is very, very heavy with it, and it usually blocks the tornado. Also, we have a lot of trees here in East Texas as well in the piney woods, and of course those trees can block your view. 1 second you can see the tornado, and the next second you can't see where it is, if it's coming towards you or if it's moving away for you. So really don't try to go look for it with all the trees around. And then of course at night tornadoes are impossible to see unless there is some flashes of lightning, but certainly do not want to wait for that to happen before you get shelter. Now, we do have several ways of seeing a tornado on radar, and first we look at reflectivity. Now, this is what we typically show on the radar on a day-to-day basis. This just shows how intense the precipitation is, and when we're looking at reflectivity, we're looking to see if there's a hook echo with this supercell, and if it does, that usually indicates a greater tornado potential. We also have velocity, shows the wind inside the storm. We look for the red and green pretty close together, the red going away from the radar and the green wind going toward the radar, and that helps us see that the storm is in fact rotating. And then also we look for what's called a tornadic debris signature, or TDS, which is the radar detecting debris that is being lofted into the air. You usually see see it in the form of a circle of some brighter colors on the radar. So again, when a tornado warning is issued, keep in mind the tornado safe places is going to be in the lowest floor of an interior room. Again, leaving as many walls between you and the outside world as possible, including a basement if you have one, but if not, typically a bathroom is the safest place to be. So not only do we see tornadoes here in East Texas, but also we have a problem with large hail, Carson.
Yeah, that is certainly true, Andrew, and very good advice there. Always get in the lowest level of your house. If you don't have a basement, which a lot of us don't, get into that interior room. But as Andrew mentioned, sometimes with these stronger thunderstorms, we get something called hail. Now, a lot of us are familiar with this, and we were certainly familiar with it in Longview, January 19th of 2022. Look at all this hail falling across the area, and man, that was a storm to be reckoned with. And you can see on January 19th, this was sent in from Josh Cutler of Marshall. This is 2.5 inches in diameter, the same size as a tennis ball. So that warranted a severe thunderstorm warning for us. Now let's talk about hail formation. Hail formation explained for us. So you've got wind going into the storm and wind going out of the storm. What's called an updraft, that is the air flowing into the storm and up into the clouds into higher altitudes. Now what that does is it super cools those water droplets, so we end up seeing some freezing because it's colder in the altitude above us. And those hailstones, they're not heavy enough to fall, they go back up, they're not heavy enough to fall, and then they come crashing down when those updrafts begin to weaken, and unfortunately that causes a lot of damage. Marcus?
Yeah, it does. Carson and Andrew, thank you so much for taking time to share all of that. Coming up next, severe weather's #1 killer and also ways to keep your family safe during severe weather. We'll be right back.